Upon reading Kris Shaffer's Data versus Democracy, I was quite surprised by the way digital infrastructure has been modified in such a short time. Much like urban and suburban infrastructure has been altered for logical human use, online infrastructure has been modified for psychological human use. As someone who works in digital marketing and otherwise stays very up to date on this type of information, this was an incredibly beneficial read. Some of Shaffer's writing was a welcome review, such as BLM and the Ferguson protests, the alt-right and Gamergate, and the alt-right's social platforms 4chan and 8chan. Other information was borderline shocking, including Twitter's algorithm change being detrimental to organizing protests, bots in Brazil and the Philippines, and certain details on the annexation of Crimea. I wrote a report on Ukraine about a year ago, and nearly half of that content involved the Crimean Peninsula. Nowhere in my research did I find reasons that Shaffer gives for the partial support of Putin in the area. It was akin to the information wars that Cambridge Analytica was responsible for in the United States in 2016. Sure enough, both the logic and Shaffer's sources check out. Data versus Democracy was almost prescient in some cases, such as mentions of discrediting elections or the quote, "If we can't trust the information we consume, we can't trust the democratic process." In other cases, statements made are the opposite of what lies true today. A few years ago, Twitter was hesitant to shut down accounts citing free speech. Oh, how the times have changed. Fortunately for everybody, bullying or doxing bots on Twitter are no more, as the social company has cracked down on such behavior. As I was reading this book, one thing was made abundantly clear to me. Social media and mainstream media seem to constantly be at war. Because each side attempts to control the narrative, one side is often accused of misappropriating the messages of the other. Some of Shaffer's points were incorrect, however. There were anecdotal statements such as the mention of a few Silicon Valley parents who were limiting screen time of their children, or his mention of how people used to stay in the same place because that was the case for his family. Of course, the polar opposite is true. Macroeconomics and any study done on workplace mobility shows that it has been steadily declining since 1970, and social mobility is right there with it. Pandemic aside, people are staying in the same place now more than they ever have before. While these mentions may seem minuscule to many, subject matter experts are sure to pick up on them, and it does create a credibility issue. He also goes into detail about ads for Apple's white headphones and otherwise colorful campaigns. He embarrassingly misses the mark here, as those campaigns were iconic advertisements for the iPod, not the headphones. Frankly, white headphones were nothing special at the time. In another section, Shaffer states that a single Super Bowl ad isn't worth it if you have no marketing budget left afterward. Reddit proved the statement completely wrong in 2021, blowing their whole budget on a 5-second spot only to see massive amounts of buzz because of it. For what it's worth, this statement about finding the sweet spot for ad frequency is correct, and advertising platforms like Google account for this. Maybe it's the industry I work in, but the information on confirmation bias, collaborative filtering, ad tracking using cookies, and machine learning is typically considered common knowledge by now. Nonetheless, it was nice of the author to confirm my biases. Ooh, is that ironic? With the CCPA, the 2020 election, violent insurrection, and Trump's banning from Twitter, so much has happened in this area of study in the 2 years since the book's publication that perhaps a second edition is due. Or maybe I've spent too much time working in the world of publishing. Overall, I'd certainly recommend this book, as I give Data versus Democracy a solid 8 out of 10 on the enjoyment scale and a whopping 9.5 out of 10 for quality of information.